Welcome to another episode of How It's Gypsy, narrated by Gino Goodlookin. Don't forget to put some respect on my name and like this video. In this episode, I'll be exposing the Walt Disney classic, Cinderella. Now before I start decoding the story, I want to take a minute to bring everybody up to speed on some of the main characters. Just because I know it's probably been a while since most people have watched this film. Okay, let's start with Prince Charming. Now where do I begin? Let's start with his name. Prince Charming. Now that's not a bad gypsy name, but it does tell me two things. One, he put this name on himself so that every time someone says it, he gets a Baripen boost. Side note, Baripen boost work the same way mushrooms work in Super Mario games. They can make you undemable, unbucketable, and in some instances they can even make you look taller on photos. And the second thing that his name tells me is that this name was not given to him, because almost all the names gypsies have put on people over the years have usually started off as a dig, news, or an inside joke about that person. Next up, we have the evil stepmother, which is where the term evil stepmother comes from. She's such a bitch. She spends the whole movie making sure Cinderella takes care of her pets, washes her clothes, helps clean the house, and when her 15-year-old stepdaughter tells her that she wants to go on a good time party and stay out past midnight, she enforces a curfew. What a bitch. She spends the whole movie trying to be a mother and trying to keep Cinderella from being 16 and pregnant, and then moving on to being a teen mom who becomes a backdoor teen mom. And finally we have the character of Cinderella. Well, she's like Whitney Houston in the way that Whitney Houston was every woman. Cinderella is every gypsy girl between the ages of 13 and 16, if their parents are lucky and they don't get a new sooner than that. Now our story begins in the olden days, back when you ate when your mother cooked that day or you didn't eat at all. Now we hear these birds singing what I can only describe as Amy Winehouse music before Amy Winehouse was even born. This wakes Cinderella up, and after saying what's up to her buccaneers, she starts singing with the birds and gets in the shower. All the animals in this movie are her friends, except for her stepmother's pussycat, which coincidentally is named Lucifer, which I choose to see as Disney's symbolic way of sneak dissing the Bangara by calling him a pussy. Way to go, Disney, you're officially hip in my book. Well, until I do a How It's Gypsy for the Hunchback of Notre Dame anyways. So anyways, Cinderella starts doing her chores, you know, which Disney knew would be some boring scenes because he couldn't license any of the songs from my mixtape, Songs Your Mother Cleans the House To Volume 1, which you should definitely cop for $12. The money goes to a good cause and everything, my drug dealer's rent. So anyways, Disney cuts these scenes juxtaposed with scenes of the buccaneers that live in her ked. Now me personally, I hate the buccaneers, but Cinderella made peace with them because this was back in the day, before glue traps and rat poison. And in case you didn't know, she's a bit of a dingbat. This is the part where we start to get a sense of who these buccaneers really are. There was the Tulo one named Gus. He was slow, like his mother definitely dropped him when he was a baby, and so he said everything twice. So one of the boys started calling him Gus Gus and it stuck. And then there was Jacques, the mean Josh. It's not addressed in the movie, but anybody named Jacques is a mean Josh, let me tell you. And then there was the girl mouse, whose name I can't remember for the world, but if I had to bet money on it, I say her middle name was Marie, because that's about 63% of gypsy girls' middle names. So anyways, these three mice and about 700 of their closest cousins go on a chudding spree to get Cinderella everything she'll need to get a bad name, because they saw how she was crying in her room and they feel chudder for her. They start making her a dress like from My Big Fat Gypsy Wedding and making her kamukeri jewelry to match it so she'll be all blinged out. And Jacques, the mean Josh mouse, starts doing her hair and her makeup and listening to all her problems. And he only got Zeevil on her once during the whole process. She wouldn't shut the fuck up while he was trying to draw her eyebrows on, so they had words. But they made peace once everything was said and done. That was it, there was Kisna. Now Cinderella's finally all done up and ready to take pictures for Instagram, and her stepsisters start fucking with her. They're all like, so who you John with, Chaya? And she's like, no one. And then they're like, well, why you got big makeup on for, Chaya? And so she lies and says she was just taking pictures, and she tells them to leave her alone. Then one of them says they're gonna tell their mother that they heard news on Cinderella. This incites a riot, and soon the whole house goes up for grabs. By the time the Punlat got there and broke up the fight, Cinderella looked like she had a run-in with Sharkeisha. Her dress was fucked. She had a black eye and she had a bruised boo from where her stepsister kicked her with her size 14 foot. After this beating, her stepmother gave her a volume for the pain and sent her off to bed. Meanwhile, her stepmother took her stepsisters on the good time party that Cinderella had intended to go to. This is where shit starts to get real. Cinderella starts praying to her Bubba for help, and if by magic, this lady in a blue housecoat and hair curlers shows up. Cinderella asked all the obvious questions. Yai, where did you come from? Who's your mother and father? Do you want me to put for you? Do you see what I gotta live with? And, Chaya, who are you? The lady in blue, finally able to breathe after this 2-minute interrogation, replies that her name is Felicia and that she's Cinderella's fairy godbubba. And then she offers to help Cinderella get to Prince Charming's hall. And with the wave of her wand, she turns Cinderella's room dress into a beautiful white dress, because she knew this would be the last time Cinderella could ever wear a white dress. She turns the Paganyis into horses, and magically turns a pumpkin into a carriage, like a DIY YouTube video. And then she sends Cinderella off, and Cinderella's like, bye Felicia, and Felicia's like, bye bitch, go and get you some dick. No, she didn't really say that, I just added that part. Now I should note that throughout the movie, Prince Charming's been feeling cholo for himself, since he ain't got no chai or nothing. Now he's had a lot of girlfriends, some of which were beautiful, but for some reason it just never works out. He always loses interest. So his dad said he'd make him a hall and invite everyone's daughters so he can meet a couple of chais. This is the hall Cinderella's on her way to, and that her stepsisters are currently on. Cinderella's stepmother tries her hardest to pawn one of these bitches off on the prince, but he heard those size 14 feet fucking up his hardwood floors from upstairs. So he curves both those bitches to the side. So anyway, Cinderella gets there late as hell. Almost all the stuffed cabbage was gone. So instead of making herself a plate, she said fuck it and made her way to the dance floor. So the boys started to play The Shadow of Your Smile, which is the only song their papus had learned them to play up to this point. So the prince is just staring at the floor, like Dilina do, and that's when he notices them. And by them, I mean Cinderella's feet. She had those clear heels on, like the strippers wear, which distracted the prince, and he wound up bumping into her, because he wasn't watching where he was going. Now Cinderella tries to apologize, but he pulls her to dance. Now thank God she took that volume earlier, because I don't know how she'd do the bus stop after that beating she got. For everyone that doesn't know what the bus stop is, it's a dance that used to be known as the hustle, until the Gypsies charted it, added their own moves, and then rebranded it the bus stop. So now they start dancing, which leads to wanting to booyah, which leads to jawing, which leads to trying to convince her you won't tell nobody, which would have led to booyahing, but she had to get home before her stepmother because she was supposed to wash the dishes and forgot to. So she runs off. The prince tries to grab her and tell her she ain't going nowhere till she meets his mother, but she's running like the wind because she knows if her stepmother gets home before her, it's round 2 on her ass for not doing those dishes. Cinderella took off so fast she forgot one of her shoes. So later that night he's telling his godfather / uncle that he's found the woman of his dreams. So his uncle asked him, well, what's her name, mother? The prince doesn't know because he didn't even ask her that, which rules out his uncle's next question, which was who's her mother and father. So his uncle starts to ask him, well, what does she look like, mother? The prince stood there dumbfounded. This leads to a back and forth argument between them about how are they going to find this girl if he doesn't know what she looks like, let alone her name. And then finally the prince pulls out the hill and says that he would know who she is if he saw her foot in the shoe again. His uncle just looks at him with that "Yai, mother, you too?" look that us gypsy boys give each other when we find out we have a common interest. It's like in Step Brothers when they become best friends. Anyways, this scene serves the purpose of telling the audience that what we've suspected all along is true. The prince has a foot fetish. If this was a Goosebumps book, this would be the twist. So now the prince and his uncle go house to house to watch all the little gypsy girls try on this hill. This takes weeks. The prince loves it. This is a story he can tell the boys for years. Finally, they wind up at Cinderella's house, and her stepsister starts to try on the hill. The first one can't even fit her wide ass foot in the shoe. So Cinderella says she wants to try on the hill, and then her stepmother says, well, why, Chaya? You weren't even on the hall. The plot thickens. So Cinderella just shuts up and watches as her second stepsister tries to squeeze her Shaquille O'Neal looking foot into the hill. She's determined as fuck to fit in this hill. And honestly, which gypsy girl wouldn't be? Fitting in this hill would mean never having to cook or clean again. So she's giving it her all, like Adrian Peterson in the fourth quarter down by 3 points. And then boom, the glass shatters. The prince's godfather starts crying his eyes out. He's never gonna find his kid a wife now. And then Cinderella pulls out the second hill. Now if this were a Goosebumps book, this would be the second twist. So her stepmother gives her that gypsy woman dirty look. You know the one I'm talking about. The one that can literally mean anything. From who invited you to keep trotting my statuses, bitch. So Cinderella puts the hill on and the prince is just mesmerized. He's found the girl from the hall. The movie then goes on to show us that they got married. So naturally people ask me, is that really what happened, Gino? Like I'm supposed to fucking know. I don't know. This all happened before I was born, in the land before time, BG, before Gino Good Looking. So now's the part of the video where I'm supposed to tell you that if you enjoyed this, to like, comment, share it, and to subscribe to my channel. But I'm not gonna do that, because then you won't. I'm gonna use a bit of reverse psychology, and I'm gonna tell you don't like my video, don't comment on my video, don't share my video, and don't subscribe to my channel.